The next part of the coursework is the existing app research. Now, the mark scheme kind of suggests that all the research happens in this section. The truth of the matter is that it's a little bit more nuanced than that. So when we are looking at different features, there is inevitably going to be a lot more research. So if I found that there's an existing app, there's a feature that I want in the app, well, I need to work out how that feature is implemented. And sometimes it's better to put that research into the feature section than to put it into the existing app section. Okay. So it is kind of almost like a discussion about how you're going to structure your coursework. But I like to think of it as in I'm doing the research at the point I need to research it. Hopefully that makes sense. We'll see it as we go through. So you're going to look at existing solutions. Now, these are going to be two applications at least. If you want to do more than two, that's absolutely fine, but you must do at least two. And you're going to look at existing apps that are similar to what you are trying to achieve. Okay, you can think of them like competitors. If I was going to release my app into the App Store, for example, or into the wild world, I want to know, well, who am I competing against? Who do I need to be better than? Who is going to be, taking my market share from me if I'm not careful, or who am I trying to steal market share from? So, who are my competitors? Who are making apps that are similar to what I'm trying to achieve? Now, sometimes this is fairly easy. Sometimes it's less so. So this also comes down to the quality of your choice when it comes to picking what your app is going to be. So if you said, I'm going to remake Pac-Man, for example, well, what makes existing apps? I'm going to research Pac-Man. Okay. Well, what about looking at different types of Pac-Man? Maybe looking at, what these have to offer. Is there like the 3D version of Pac-Man, or was it the basic kind of arcade version of it? It's about finding two applications which are similar, but they don't have to be exactly the same. They may have overlapping features, so it might be you're doing something completely unique and no one has ever done this before, but there might be some things which are similar. So maybe, I don't know, you envisage the UI working similarly to an existing app, maybe. Maybe there's kind of elements which are similar to how something else works. So you just need to find two apps which are similar. So the mark we're going for here is research the problem in depth, looking at existing solutions to similar problems, identifying and justifying suitable approach based on this research. Okay, so the existing app research is the starting point of that kind of journey into working out, well, what am I going to put into my app? How is that going to work? Why do I need it? What's important about it? So we kind of start off with identifying, and then we move into that justification. So let's think of an example. So the mark bands are spread like this. So in 3 to 5 marks. Okay, so this is kind of like band 2. Research the problem, looking at existing solutions to similar problems, identifying some appropriate features to incorporate into their solution. 6 to 8 marks. Research the problem in depth, looking at existing solutions to similar problems, identifying and describing suitable approaches based on this research. And finally, research the problem in depth, looking at existing solutions to similar problems, identifying and justifying suitable approaches based on this research. So hopefully you can start to see like there's a pattern there. So in band 2, we've researched it and we looked at similar things and we identified. We have described in band 3 and we justified in band 4. So identify, describe, justify. So look at an example here. Bomberman is a game where you can drop bombs to beat the other players. You win the game by being the last player standing. So it does identify it, doesn't it? I think you might be hard pushed to say, oh, this is A-level kind of band 2 there, because it's probably nowhere near that. It really is it. But hopefully you can get the idea that me just stating what something is not going to get me the marks. Okay, it's not going to be anywhere near it. So what band would I put this in personally? I wouldn't put it in any of those. I think it's not good enough, nowhere near good enough. So what does in-depth mean to begin with? So we need to explain things better. Okay, our descriptions need to be better. So this is starting to kind of look at that kind of describing. Now, this is part of it. So I would start off with kind of giving you an overview of the app. So in this example, Bomb Man is a game where you can drop bombs to beat other players. You win the game by being less players standing. Bombs, when dropped, will detonate with flames that travel both vertically and horizontally. When a bomb goes planted, there's a short delay before it goes off. The number of bombs, the size of the flames, and other parameters are influenced by power-ups. So this is the starting point of a description of how Bomb works, and hopefully you can start to see how that would then extend outwards. So now we're starting pushing it into, we're definitely identifying what's going on here. We're starting to give a bit more depth to it, and we're starting to describe it. Okay, we haven't described how we're going to approach it yet, how we're going to implement it, but we've definitely started to give a bit more in-depth into it. So we're now moving into that 6 to 8 mark boundary. So hopefully you start to see the kind of difference between just giving me some information to describing it in detail and giving me a bit more depth. The next stage, once you have kind of described or the overview of how it kind of works, we're now starting to narrow in on the features. So what you have to be able to do is, based on your research, pull out which features you think I'm going to include that, and which features think, no, I'm not going to put that in there at all. So, for example, in Bomb Man, some walls might be destructible. Okay, justification for that. Well, this allows the game map to start to expand, creating more strategy. It also allows players to get power-ups which are hidden in these walls. Okay, so I'm starting to kind of like delve into the why it's an important feature. Now, the skill here is to really think carefully about all of the features that are in this app and not just simply gloss over them. Thinking about things like, well, movement, if it's a game. So how's it moving? How's the score work? What's the difficulty like? What power-ups are like? What's changes between different levels? How did the enemies respond? Coming into all these nuanced details of the application. If it's a normal app, well, what are the main things you can click on? What are all the interactive parts to it? Now, for some apps are huge sometimes, and they might have millions of features. Obviously, you're not going to review every single possible feature of a giant app. So let's say Photoshop, for example, because you'd be there till doomsday. But what you would do is describe all the core features, all the features that you know are going to be a big influence on your solution, what you are trying to achieve. So you need to say what the feature are, which are justifications. You might need to give them a more description of that feature as well. So if you've not really described it already, you need and must describe it in depth, as well as justify about why you would include it. Now, this is only part of your research, as I've already kind of hinted towards. We need to, for every single thing that you are going to implement, we need to state what feature that is. Now, that normally comes from your existing app research. So you might find an existing app and say, okay, cool, it's got destructible walls, for example, as one of the core features. I've identified it. Okay, I've justified why it's important, and I'll explain how it works. So I explain what it does and how it works. When I say how it works, I'm not necessarily saying, well, how I'm going to code it yet. I'm just saying, well, how does it work in this app, in this game? I justify its importance. Why is it needed? Why would I include it into my app? And then finally, and this is the really important bit, is I'll research, well, how does it work? How is it implemented? How could I implement it? What algorithms are behind the scenes? If I was going to code this, what would I need to do? Okay, so that comes into the next part of the research. So in existing app research, okay, in this first kind of section, you're focusing in on the first 3 parts: stating a feature, explaining how it works, and then justifying its importance. Okay, this is based on the apps you are reviewing and researching, not necessarily the apps you are going to include, but obviously your justification will probably include some of that kind of stuff as well. Now, what's also really important at this stage is just keeping a kind of track of what you're doing. Okay, this helps me as well as you. Okay, it helps you because you will know where you got to. So at the end of a coursework session, just make a quick note, like 30 seconds max, writing down, I managed to research this first app and I need to work on this next. Okay, it gives you a chance to keep track of it. This becomes really essential later on when we start to implement your code, because you need to kind of take me along that development journey when you were making it. It allows me to see what's been added, okay, as well. So if I'm going to be marking your work, I only look at the new stuff and I can give you kind of feedback on that. I will assume you've not changed something unless you kind of make it clear to me, okay? So that is also important. So just get in the habit of creating a log and updating it. So you can get the analysis mark scheme off the spec. It is in there. This is just what it looks like for analysis. There's quite a lot of stuff that's in there. I'm not going to take any time at the moment to kind of explain every single mark, because I'll do it over the course of a few videos. The mark we are trying to do at the moment is that third one down, which is researching. The notes in band 1, it says just identify the appropriate features. So that's kind of like not even saying what they are, just saying, here's the feature, done. Okay, so you've identified what features you're going to implement based on existing apps. So what do you need to do for existing app research? Okay, I want you to have 2 existing apps and written them up. Okay, so written up, these are my existing apps. This is what these apps do. I want you to kind of go into depth on it, okay, explaining the details of the app and all the kind of core features that you think are relevant to your system. And also maybe some of the ones that could be relevant, but you are not going to be thinking about, you're not going to be considering. And then justify that position. So if, for example, in Bombman, I'm not going to include, I don't know, the sudden death part of it, where the wall kind of goes round, I might give a justification why. Or maybe the reason why is I want this to be more casual. I don't want this to be really high intensity, high pressure. I want people to kind of maybe have more strategy. Not the best justification in the world, obviously, but hopefully you're getting the idea. Why are you going to include it? Why are you not going to include it? Do aim for band 4 on everything, okay? Because if you aim for band 4, then you are more likely to pick up all the other bands. So worst comes to worst, you don't hit band 4, well, maybe you'll hit band 3, okay? So you're not going to lose marks. If you aim for band 3 and miss, well, you go down to band 2. And if you aim for band 2, well, you're not going to pick up the marks, are you? So hopefully that was clear. Okay, do look at some of the OCR examples to help you with this as well if you're not so sure about what it's going to look like. But fundamentally, find 2 apps which are similar, give a description of what they are, focus on those features, and then identify, explain, justify.